Imagine a world of endless ice, where the wind bites like 1,000 tiny teeth, and survival is a daily struggle. A world where magnificent creatures roam, seemingly untouched by human sentiment. But what if, in this unforgiving wilderness, a single act of kindness could forge an unbreakable bond, a memory so profound it defied time and instinct? Prepare yourselves, because today, we're diving into an extraordinary true story that will challenge everything you thought you knew about the wild heart of nature. The Arctic, a vast, shimmering expanse of white and blue, is a land of breathtaking beauty and brutal realities. It was here, amidst the towering icebergs and the biting winds of a late spring, that Dr. Eris Thorne, a renowned wildlife biologist, found himself on a routine research expedition. Eris was a man deeply connected to the natural world, his life dedicated to understanding and protecting its most vulnerable inhabitants. He had spent decades studying polar bears, their resilience, their hunting prowess, and their solitary lives on the ice. One frigid morning, while navigating his ice-strengthened vessel through a labyrinth of frozen floes, a distress call crackled over the radio. A young polar bear, barely more than a cub, was trapped. Not just trapped, but in a dire situation. It had fallen into a narrow, deep crevasse, a jagged wound in the ice, too steep and slick for the young animal to climb out of on its own. The mother bear, frantic and helpless, paced at the edge, her roars echoing across the desolate landscape, a sound that tore at Eris's heart. Reaching the location was a treacherous journey. The ice was unstable, shifting with the currents, and the air was thick with a chilling mist. When Eris and his small crew finally arrived, the scene was even more heartbreaking than described. The cub, shivering violently, was barely visible at the bottom of the icy chasm. Its fur, usually a pristine white, was matted with ice and grime. The mother bear, a formidable creature of immense power, was a picture of pure desperation, her eyes fixed on her struggling offspring. Eris knew the risks. Polar bears, especially mothers protecting their young, are incredibly dangerous. But the cub wouldn't last much longer in the freezing water at the bottom of the crevasse. Time was running out. Without hesitation, Eris began to formulate a plan. He was a scientist, yes, but first and foremost, he was a compassionate human being. With meticulous care, he and his team rigged a makeshift harness and a sturdy rope. Eris, despite the protests of his crew, insisted on being the one to descend. "It's too risky," Dr. Thorne, his first mate, urged. But Eris was resolute. "That cub won't survive if we wait. And its mother deserves to see us try." Slowly, carefully, Eris was lowered into the icy abyss. The cold was immediate and intense, seeping into his bones. The air was thick with the cub's desperate whimpers and the mother's guttural growls. As he neared the bottom, the cub, initially fearful, seemed to sense his intent. Its small, dark eyes, wide with terror and exhaustion, met his. Eris worked quickly, his fingers numb, securing the harness around the cub's shivering body. The mother bear watched, a tense, silent sentinel, her gaze never leaving Eris. There was a moment, a fleeting second, when their eyes met, man and beast, a silent understanding passing between them. With a coordinated effort, the team above began to haul the cub upwards. It was a slow, arduous process, but finally, with a collective sigh of relief, the little bear was pulled to safety. The mother rushed forward, nudging her cub, licking its frozen fur, a low rumble of relief emanating from her chest. Eris, safely back on the ice, watched the reunion, a profound sense of accomplishment warming him more than any fire could. He knew this was a rare, almost impossible, moment. He had saved a life, and in doing so, had touched the wild heart of the Arctic. He named the cub Nanook, a traditional Inuit name meaning polar bear. He knew he would likely never see Nanook again, but the memory of that day would stay with him forever. Years turned into a decade. The Arctic continued its relentless cycle of freezing and thawing, life and death. Dr. Eris Thorne continued his vital research, his dedication to wildlife conservation unwavering. He had countless encounters with polar bears over the years, some fleeting glimpses, others more prolonged observations from a safe distance. Each bear was a testament to the raw power and beauty of the wild, but none ever quite matched the intensity of that day he rescued Nanook. He often thought of the cub, wondering if it had survived, if it had grown into a strong, healthy adult. The odds were stacked against young polar bears. The Arctic was changing, the ice receding, making hunting more challenging. Climate change was a constant, looming threat, and Eris was at the forefront of documenting its devastating impact on these magnificent creatures. Nanook, meanwhile, had indeed survived. The mother bear, having witnessed the extraordinary act of kindness, had led her cub away from the crevasse and back into the vastness of the ice. Nanook grew, learning the harsh lessons of survival from its experienced mother. It learned to hunt seals, to navigate the treacherous ice floes, and to endure the brutal Arctic winters. The memory of the human who had pulled it from the icy grip of death, though perhaps not a conscious thought in the way humans remember, was etched deep into its primal being. Animals, especially those with complex social structures and keen senses, have remarkable memories. They remember places, sounds, smells, and interactions that shape their lives. For Nanook, the scent of that human, the gentle touch, the sensation of being lifted to safety, became a part of its earliest, most formative experiences. It was an anomaly, a deviation from the usual wary encounters between bears and humans. Eris, back in his lab or on other expeditions, would occasionally share the story of Nanook. His colleagues would listen with a mix of awe and skepticism. A polar bear remembering a human. Unlikely, Eris. They're driven by instinct. Eris would simply smile. He knew what he had felt that day, the connection, however brief. He held on to a quiet hope, a feeling that perhaps, just perhaps, nature had a longer memory than humans gave it credit for. The years brought new challenges for Eris. Funding cuts, political indifference to climate change, and the sheer vastness of the Arctic made his work increasingly difficult. He felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, the responsibility to protect these creatures who had no voice of their own. Sometimes, in the quiet solitude of his research vessel, he would gaze out at the endless ice and remember the small, shivering cub, a symbol of both vulnerability and enduring hope. He never imagined that hope would manifest itself in the most incredible way. It was late summer, a time when the Arctic ice begins to break up, creating vast stretches of open water. Eris was on a solo research trip, tracking a specific group of seals, when a sudden, violent storm blew in. The winds howled, churning the sea into a furious maelstrom, and thick fog descended, reducing visibility to mere feet. His small vessel, designed for ice, struggled against the colossal waves. A rogue wave slammed into the side, damaging his navigation equipment and sending him off course. He was adrift, lost in a whiteout, miles from any known land or stable ice. For 3 days, Eris battled the elements, conserving his dwindling supplies, his heart heavy with the grim reality of his situation. He was a seasoned Arctic explorer, but this was different. The cold was relentless, the isolation absolute. On the 4th day, the storm finally began to abate, the fog slowly lifting, revealing a desolate, ice-strewn sea. But his engine was dead, and his communications were out. He was truly stranded. As the fog thinned, a massive, white shape emerged from the swirling mist. A polar bear. Eris's first instinct was caution. A hungry bear, especially one that felt threatened, could be incredibly dangerous. He reached for his flare gun, a last resort. But as the bear drew closer, something about its demeanor was different. It wasn't approaching with the predatory stealth of a hunter. Instead, it seemed curious. It was an enormous male, easily over 10 feet tall when standing on its hind legs, its fur thick and healthy. As it reached the edge of the ice floe where Eris's boat was stuck, it stopped. Its head tilted, its nose twitching, taking in the scent. Eris, frozen in place, noticed something peculiar. A faint, almost imperceptible scar above its left eye, a small, faded mark that he vaguely remembered from a very different time. Then, the bear did something that sent a shiver down Eris's spine, not of fear, but of profound recognition. It let out a soft, almost questioning rumble, a sound he hadn't heard from a polar bear since that day. And then, it slowly, deliberately, dipped its head, almost like a bow. It was a gesture Eris had seen only once before, from a terrified cub, years ago, after he had pulled it from the crevasse. Nanook. Eris whispered, his voice hoarse with disbelief. The bear, as if understanding, took another step closer, its large, dark eyes fixed on him. There was no aggression, no threat, only an intense, unwavering gaze. It was Nanook, grown to magnificent adulthood. The cub he had saved, against all odds, had found him. And it remembered. What happened next defied all scientific explanation. Nanook didn't leave. It stayed, pacing the edge of the ice floe, almost as if guarding him. When a smaller, more aggressive male bear approached later that day, Nanook let out a thunderous roar, a clear warning, driving the intruder away. It was protecting him. For 2 days, Nanook remained. It would occasionally lie down on the ice, watching Eris, its presence a silent, powerful reassurance. Eris, meanwhile, managed to make a small, makeshift signal fire. On the 3rd day, a search plane, alerted by the unexpected smoke, spotted his vessel. As the plane circled, preparing for rescue, Nanook stood up, looked at Eris one last time, and then, with a final, deep rumble, turned and disappeared into the vastness of the Arctic, a silent guardian melting back into the landscape. The rescue team couldn't believe Eris's story. A polar bear, protecting a human. It sounded like something out of a fairy tale. But Eris, shaken but unharmed, knew what he had experienced. The scar, the unique rumble, the protective stance, it was Nanook. It had to be. The story of Eris and Nanook spread quickly, first among the scientific community, then to the wider world. It became a beacon of hope, a powerful testament to the intelligence and memory of animals, and the profound connections that can form between species. Scientists debated it, some skeptical, others awestruck. But for Eris, it was undeniable. Nanook had remembered. This incredible reunion wasn't just a heartwarming anecdote, it carried a deeper, more urgent message. It highlighted the intricate web of life in the Arctic and the devastating impact of human actions on this delicate ecosystem. Nanook's survival, and its extraordinary act of recognition, underscored the value of every single life, and the potential for reciprocity even in the wild. Eris used his experience to amplify his message about climate change and the plight of polar bears. He spoke with renewed passion, his voice carrying the weight of a personal encounter that transcended scientific data. He argued that if a creature of the wild could remember an act of kindness for over a decade, then surely humanity could remember its responsibility to protect the planet. The bond between Eris and Nanook became a symbol. It showed that nature, in its vastness and complexity, is not just a collection of instincts, but a tapestry woven with memory, intelligence, and perhaps, even a form of gratitude. It forced people to reconsider their anthropocentric views, to see animals not just as subjects of study or resources, but as sentient beings capable of profound experiences. The story resonated with millions, inspiring a new wave of interest in Arctic conservation. Donations poured into wildlife organizations, and more people became aware of the urgent need to address global warming. Nanook, the polar bear who remembered, became an unwitting ambassador for its species, its story a living testament to the fact that every action, no matter how small, can have a ripple effect across the natural world. The tale of Eris and Nanook isn't just a story of survival, it's a powerful reminder that our actions, big or small, have consequences that echo far beyond our immediate perception. It's a testament to the incredible intelligence and emotional depth of animals, particularly those we often perceive as purely instinct-driven. Nanook's memory, etched into its very being, serves as a poignant example of nature's capacity for remembrance and connection. Eris Thorne continued his work, but with a renewed sense of purpose. He carried the memory of Nanook not just as a personal experience, but as a shared responsibility. He understood that the bond forged in that icy crevasse was not just between a man and a bear, but between humanity and the wild. It was a call to action, a plea from the heart of the Arctic. The story of Nature Never Forgets tells us that kindness is a universal language, understood even across species. It reminds us that every creature has a place, a purpose, and a right to thrive. And perhaps, most importantly, it teaches us that if we listen closely enough, and observe with an open heart, nature will always have profound lessons to teach us. So, what can we take away from this incredible journey? It's simple: respect for nature, understanding its intricate balance, and recognizing the profound intelligence that exists within the animal kingdom. Nanook's story is a powerful reminder that we are all connected, and that the future of our planet depends on our collective memory, our ability to remember our responsibility to protect the wild places and the magnificent creatures that call them home. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think differently about the world around us, then hit that like button, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to our channel for more incredible tales of nature's wonders. Let's keep the conversation going and continue to be the voice for those who cannot speak for themselves. Thank you for watching.